Hello and welcome to the Health Bridge podcast. My name is Holly B. I am your host. Today, my guest is Lauren Fonvielle. She is an accredited emotional freedom techniques trainer, also known as EFT. She specializes in helping clients overcome stress, anxiety, trauma, and negative thought patterns. With extensive training through EFT International, Lauren empowers individuals to use EFT for emotional and physical healing. She also integrates yoga, meditation, and sound healing into her practice, offering a holistic approach to wellness. Lauren is committed to creating a supportive space for personal growth, helping clients achieve emotional resilience and inner peace. So, EFT is also known as tapping. So, you may have heard of it before as tapping. There are several practitioners that are pretty well known online for doing this technique. What I love about tapping or EFT is that it's very emotional based. So it's helping you address underlying emotional issues, limiting beliefs, deep rooted traumas that are stagnating and keeping you stuck, keeping you sick, keeping you from moving forward in all different areas of your life. And it's a really subtle but effective and very accessible way of getting to these root emotional issues behind the patterns that you're experiencing in your life. It can be used for acute situations, it can be used for long term chronic situations. And it's something that I think is very useful and effective for especially the autoimmune community. So, Lauren has been doing this for a long time. She's found extreme benefit in herself in working through her own anxiety and stress, which she'll talk about as we get into the conversation. She's going to take us through the beginning of what a tapping practice might look like when you're working with a practitioner. If you are listening to this while you are driving or somewhere where you can't see the video, I highly recommend that you either pause it until you can or come back and watch the video version on YouTube when you have the chance so that you can see the different points of where we're tapping just to help you visualize it if you're not familiar with the technique already. We are tapping on Overwhelm because that's something that I am currently working through. And I'm sure if you are in the autoimmune community, you probably know what overwhelm feels like. And I'm hoping that'll be very beneficial to you as well. So, quickly, before we dive into this episode with Lauren, I would love to ask you to take a moment to like and comment or subscribe to this podcast. We are scrappy around here and we need all the help we can get to get episodes out further, reach more people that can benefit from this information. So if you could just take 30 seconds really quick to hit that like and subscribe button or to leave us a rate and review on whatever platform you are listening in on. I really appreciate the help in getting our podcast out further. So thank you so much for doing this and for all of your support. And now let's jump into the conversation with Lauren. Lauren Fonvielle, welcome to the Health Bridge podcast. I'm excited to have this conversation today.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here with you today. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So, you specialize in something that I have not talked about at all on my platform yet. So, I was really excited to have you come on to talk about tapping or EFT technique. And I guess we'll first just start with what does EFT stand for? What is tapping? How did you learn about it? How did you get into it in the first place?
Yeah, sure. So EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. And sometimes you'll also hear that interchanged with tapping, or sometimes people will even call it psychological acupressure. So it is this process of gently tapping on certain points of the body while simultaneously acknowledging the emotions that you're feeling and speaking out loud, saying how you feel. And the idea behind this is that we are holding space for how we truly feel. And it helps with so many different things, helps with a wide variety of conditions from anxiety, stress, overwhelm to reducing physical pain, helping women overcome limiting beliefs that they're dealing with. Yeah, it can help with so many different things. And I came to find this because of my own journey with anxiety and stress and trying to find holistic ways of helping myself feel better and feel calmer and more grounded. And I went on this whole healing journey that involved yoga and ultimately becoming a trauma informed yoga teacher. And then I got into Reiki and sound healing. And I was in some coaching groups, and that was where I was introduced to tapping. And it really had a profound impact on me. It made a real difference in how I was feeling both physically and mentally. And yeah, I got hooked and decided that I just wanted to continue to learn more and eventually got certified. And now I'm a trainer so that I can train other people who are interested in becoming EFT practitioners.
So let's dive a little bit more into your story. You were saying that you were having difficulty with like anxiety and stress. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Like, how was that impacting your life?
Yeah. So I always think back and reflect back. I think I was always the anxious kid. I always was dealing with anxiety. My mom was always a very anxious woman, and that was just what I grew up around. So I think I always thought it was just normal to be worried about things and overwhelmed, and yeah, that was the norm, and it was just something that I dealt with. And then I got married, and my husband is in the military, or he's now retired, but he was in the military, active duty when we first got married, and then he transitioned from active duty to reserves. We had two kids, and I was under the impression that he wasn't going to have to deploy again. And we got notified out of left field that he was going to have to deploy. And my anxiety just got really bad, and I started having panic attacks, and I just knew I needed to figure it out. I needed to figure out how I could show up as the best mom that I could for my kids, and that's really what set me on this journey of trying different things. I think, like a lot of people, when you feel bad, you go to the doctor, and the doctor was quick to give me a prescription. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that there's a time and a place and for medicine for sure, and it can be very helpful. And this tapping can be a practice that complements that as well. But at that point in my life, like just the way that particular medication made me feel, I didn't like it. And that was why I made this deal with myself. Like, okay, I'm going to try to find some other things and see what if I can find a natural way of feeling better. And if not, I'll go back to the doctor and I'll try something else. And yeah, that's how it all started.
So, tapping on different parts of your body, acknowledging emotions, that I'm sure to people that aren't already familiar with this sort of world of holistic healing might sound a little woo woo, a little out there, a little made up, perhaps.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
it sounds weird. I was but definitely very skeptical of it when I was first introduced to it. So that's normal. If you're listening to this and you're feeling that way, I totally understand that. I would just say if you are someone who is dealing with stress or you're dealing with these thoughts, that negative Nancy self-talk that's really keeping you down, or you're dealing with a lot of physical pain and nothing seems to be helping, I would say give it a try, because what's worst case scenario? Okay, if you don't like it, you move on to something else. But luckily for me, I was willing to try anything because my stress was just so through the roof. And I didn't understand what was happening. As I was tapping on these points, I'm like, oh, I do feel different. That's interesting. Like, I don't know why I'm feeling different, but I definitely noticed a shift in how I was physically feeling. And I was curious about that, which is why I continued to practice it and then went on to have some one on one sessions. But when I'm introducing this to someone who's never really heard of it, I compare it to acupuncture because people are familiar with acupuncture or more familiar with acupuncture than with tapping. And so that idea of going to an acupuncturist and they put tiny little needles in your body in certain points, we're applying acupressure to some of those same points. And the points that we're tapping on are the end points of the meridians. And the meridians are how energy moves through the body. And that's something that's widely talked about in Chinese medicine, or maybe if you go to a yoga class, you might hear a yoga teacher talking about meridians. And it's a way of getting that energy moving and clearing things out. But there is a lot of science behind this too. I know that it can sound really woo woo. You're tapping on yourself. Oh, how is that going to make you feel better? But it's been actually shown to reduce the amount of cortisol in the body. Cortisol is the stress hormone. So tapping on these points is sending a message to the amygdala in the brain. And the amygdala is that part of the brain that controls fight, fight, or freeze. And it tells that amygdala, hey, this is not a life or death situation. You don't need to be creating all of that cortisol. And it's been shown to reduce the cortisol by up to 43%. It's a really big number to naturally be able to reduce that cortisol.
That's huge because cortisol dysregulation is, I would say, a root cause of so many different health issues. And especially with autoimmune conditions, oftentimes we're stuck with way too much cortisol just pumping through the body. That's the whole wired but tired, like exhausted at night but can't sleep brain is pumping. And
Yeah.
so, and it just adds to the stress, the anxiety, the kind of like, it's just overall nervous system dysregulation. It adds to all that. So, any way of helping to control the cortisol is huge.
Yeah, because when that cortisol is pumping through the body, you are unable to connect with the prefrontal cortex, that front part of the brain that is there to help you make calm, good decisions. And when I always use this example with my fist, and it's if you pretend that my fist here is my brain and my knuckles here is the prefrontal cortex, like my forehead area. When information comes up the brainstem to that prefrontal cortex, that's how we make our good decisions. But when that amygdala starts firing, I'm going to pretend that's my thumb inside here, that alarm starts going off. And it's like they say, you flip your lid. So now that alarm's going off, all this cortisol is coming into the body. So when the information is coming up the brainstem to get to that prefrontal cortex, it cannot get there. You can't access that part of the brain. So that's situations where you're so stressed out or you're in so much pain. You might even say, I can't even think straight right now, because what's happening is all that cortisol is being pushed into your body and you can't access that prefrontal cortex. So when we tap, it's sending a message to that amygdala saying, hey, you don't need to be creating all that cortisol. It's not necessary. You're not in a life or death situation. And slowly that prefrontal cortex comes back online. So now you can think more clearly and feel calmer. And we all want to make decisions from a calm, grounded place, not from that frenetic energy type of place.
Exactly. And I think so much of daily life now is being stuck in fight or flight. And we don't even realize it because we're just so used to operating that way.
Yeah.
And so I think this is a really powerful technique for anyone, really, just to keep nervous system regulation under control and to calm again that cortisol down. But especially for women or anyone, I should say, struggling with autoimmune conditions, that extra stress level can trigger flares.
Right.
So, and of course, there's tons of different ways that we can go about regulating the nervous system. But what's neat about tapping is that it's accessible to everybody. Once you've learned techniques and you know how to do it, it's free, right? It's like
Yeah.
you can
Like
train
anything.
somebody. Yeah, exactly. You can train somebody and then they can take it and run with it.
Yeah,
So
it's really this practice of cultivating a relationship between the mind and the body, because our bodies are always trying to communicate to us and with us. And it's our job to pause and listen and try to figure out what's going on. And tapping is a wonderful tool that can help you with that. And it can be used on a daily basis as just part of your regular self-care, but then it can also be used on a reactive basis when you find yourself in that state of overwhelm or really stressed or dealing with a lot of pain. It can be used then as well.
so let's dive into some examples there. Where have you found it helpful to use for maybe an acute situation versus an ongoing situation?
Sure. So it can definitely be very helpful in those high stress situations. So the one that comes to mind that happened to me My husband was away. Of course, it's always when the partner is away that something happens, right? So my daughter wakes up, is complaining her stomach hurts. I take her to the doctor, figuring, oh, they're going to say it's like a stomach bug or something. They're like, oh no, you need to go to the emergency room. We think it's an appendicitis, right? And so we're at the hospital, they're admitting her, and the doctor comes in, and my anxiety is just like through the roof, right? And when you're in that state, it's very hard to stay grounded and have a conversation with the doctor when you're internally freaking out. And so, in addition to the regular tapping points, I always like to share that there's points on the fingertips. And so if you just squeeze at the base of the nail on any finger, it looks like you're fidgeting, but again, it's another one of those. There are all these points that are sending that message to the amygdala to reduce the cortisol. So as I'm sitting there talking to this doctor and I am just taking deep breaths and squeezing my fingers, it was so helpful to allow me to really be able to stay grounded and have a good conversation, and not one where I'm like, what just happened? What did he just, I was really able to stay focused. So it was very helpful in that situation. And then it's been really helpful for my own struggles. I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, but even my own struggles with limiting beliefs that come up, or fears that come up with running a business. And sometimes it's imposter syndrome type of thoughts, or feeling not good enough, that sort of thing, and tapping through them. And it's like tapping on these things. What happens is it helps to bring things that are going on in the subconscious up to the conscious, and you have some awareness of where these thoughts come from, like why you're thinking this, where this originated from. You can hold some space for it, and then you can really be able to move through it. So it's not something that's just constantly there. A lot of the time we shove that stuff down because we don't want to acknowledge it, and tapping can really help you to move through it.
Well, I love discussing limiting beliefs because when I finally started recognizing that I had all these limiting beliefs and started addressing them and changing them and changing my perspective on my viewpoints about myself, my life started shifting and my health started shifting for the better finally. And so I recognize that within autoimmune conditions, there are a lot of limiting beliefs that I think are a root cause, things that can help to lead up to autoimmune conditions, expressing feelings of not being good enough, feelings of or patterns of perfectionism, patterns of underlying beliefs of not being worthy, leading to perfectionism, leading to all of these patterns that aren't serving our highest and best. So putting everybody first before us, things like that. So maybe we could talk about tapping and how that can be utilized in recognizing and addressing these beliefs. Because I think you said earlier that as we're tapping, we're talking through or acknowledging some of the limiting beliefs or the emotions or things, and then we're talking through to the other side of how we want to shift those. Really quick, Holly B here. I just wanted to interrupt the podcast to ask you for a quick favor. Can you take just a moment to like and subscribe to this podcast on whatever platform you are listening in on? It makes a world of a difference. And the reach of this podcast, it takes like literally under 10 seconds. So go do that right now. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And now back to the episode.
Yeah. So what's different about tapping is that we're focused on how we actually feel, right? So sometimes you might come across someone who's like, okay, who would say like, okay, you recognize that you're feeling I'm not good enough. And then we're going to go to the opposite end of the spectrum, and we're going to say a positive affirmation of I'm amazing, right? Like, so I suppose you could do that, but then there's a real disconnect between what you're saying and how you're actually feeling, right? It doesn't line up. And so with tapping, what we do, we put all of our attention on how we are actually feeling, and we put words to that, and we say that, and we notice, okay, when I say I'm not good enough, are there physical sensations that I notice in my body? Do I feel, I don't know, tightness in my chest or a pit in my stomach, whatever that is? we notice that, we put words to it, and we tap and we say that. And then as we are moving through and saying these different phrases, like, even though I don't feel good enough, I'm choosing to love myself through this. And you're saying, I don't feel good enough as you tap on the points. I don't feel good enough. And you notice what starts to happen. Does the sensation in your body get more intense? Do you have a thought of something that happened, whether that be something recent or maybe a memory of something that happened a really long time ago? It could be a teacher telling you something when you were in first grade that made you feel like you were not good enough. And then our logical brain wants to be like, okay, that's so long ago. That has nothing to do with why I don't feel good enough today. Well, I can promise you that if some old memory is making its way to the surface, there's a reason for it. And tapping is this beautiful, gentle way of allowing you to explore that and see where it leads. Because as human beings, we've had so many experiences in our lives, and those experiences have these emotions attached to them. And when they are uncomfortable emotions, we didn't always have the tools to really work through and process some of that stuff. And so then it builds up and it builds up and it builds up. And sometimes it can come out as physical pain or some sort of disease. Sometimes it comes out as just like an emotional meltdown, right? And tapping helps us to identify that and really begin to shift it at the root.
And it's so important to speak, I think, to speak out loud what you're feeling. Because sometimes when we don't speak it out loud or we're not journaling about it, we're not actually acknowledging the depths of what we're feeling inside. And until we can actually put words to it, we might not even realize really what's going on. But as you start to name it, you can start to set that free. But until you name it, it's stuck, it's bottled up, it's stagnated in the body.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think particularly as women, we are so good at beating ourselves up, right? And those thoughts that you're having of whether it be I'm not good enough or I can't do this project or who am I to think that I can do this work or whatever it is that you're telling yourself, it's often on this repeat, right? We're just playing over and over in our head. We're not saying it out loud. We're just saying it to ourselves again and again. And then when we finally take the time to say that out loud, just like you were saying, then there's something that happens. You really begin to hear yourself when you're saying that. And there's been times where I've tapped with people on different limiting beliefs that they have. And when they're saying it, it's like in the beginning, it feels like, yes, that feels like really true. And we'll get a few points in and it's like, oh, why am I doing this to myself? I know this isn't true. That the shift starts just from the fact that you're hearing it out loud.
And it's also, you can acknowledge when you're starting to get to that point of like, I would never say this about my friend or my family member. If they came to me with this concern, this belief about themselves, I would tell them, no, that's absolutely not true. So we're becoming our own best friend, I guess, in that sense, in acknowledging like how silly these beliefs actually are, how untrue these beliefs actually are. And we're starting to be able to work ourselves through those beliefs and instill more confidence in ourselves in the process.
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. And sometimes it can lead to having this conversation with your inner child that's in there that really held on to these beliefs or held on to them being true. And sometimes these beliefs protected us in some way as kids, and now we're recognizing like, okay, that was something I believed or I did to protect myself, and I don't need that anymore. And it's safe. It's safety, I think, is a big part of this too, that it's safe to create the change. It's safe to speak up if you're someone who's stayed small for years, whether that be for safety reasons or whyever it happened, but feeling safe to become who you want to be is a big part of it too.
So I think with all these beliefs, well, first of all, tapping can be combined with every other modality out there and complement it. And I think again, with our physical symptoms, with the way these physical symptoms can manifest with autoimmune or with anything else, any other type of health issue, I think at first there might not be an understanding of how our emotions or our limiting beliefs tie into these physical symptoms. And so maybe there might be a disconnect there for people of like, I don't understand how working through this feeling of not being good enough is going to help my physical symptoms at all. But I think people are going to be amazed at the difference when they do start doing this emotional work and this work on the limiting beliefs, at how just acknowledging the emotions and the feelings that are there that are hidden underneath, as we bring that up to the surface, they will start to see physical changes
Yeah.
because they're not bottling that stuff up anymore. They're acknowledging it, they're releasing it, and in releasing it, that frees up space in the body to actually heal some of those physical symptoms.
Yeah, it's truly amazing to witness when that happens for someone. I think in general people can relate to the idea of when I'm feeling anxious or stressed, I feel that in my body, right? Most people can be like, okay, when I'm anxious or stressed, I feel a lot of people say I have tension in my neck and my shoulders, right? That's a common one. But the thing is that it's not just with anxiety and stress that we feel things physically. It is with every single emotion that has not been processed that you can notice it physically. And the definition of emotion is energy in motion. So it's this idea that our emotions want to be acknowledged, they want to be felt, they want to be moved through, right? They don't want to be shoved down and ignored and pretend like they're not there. And so when we begin to do that work to really acknowledge these emotions that perhaps you haven't acknowledged for a really long time, things definitely do start to shift physically in the body. And I think for some people that can be scary, right? So for this idea of, let's say you're someone who has been stuffing down anger and you have not allowed yourself to really sit in this anger for whatever reason. It could be years worth of a variety of different things, but you just haven't really allowed yourself to go there. And the idea of allowing yourself to feel that anger is so scary because it feels like you're never going to come back from it, right? It's like I once had a client say, like, it feels like if I allow myself to feel it, it's like I'm jumping off a cliff and I'm never going to be able to come back from it. And so what the beauty of tapping is, if there is a fear with feeling the feelings, you can tap on that until you feel comfortable enough to move forward. I think that's what's so wonderful about it, is that it's such a gentle practice that 100% meets you where you are. So you never have to do anything that you don't feel comfortable doing. You can use the practice to get to a point where your comfort level is there so that you can explore it and feel safe at the same time.
Is there anyone that you would recommend to not try tapping? Is there any contraindications? I'll put it that way.
No, the only thing I would say is that if you are someone who has knowingly had like big T trauma in your life, I would say definitely try to explore this with a practitioner as opposed to just trying to do it on your own. A lot of people will, and I think it's great to want to do it on your own. I was doing it on my own in the beginning too, but now as a practitioner, I like to go to a practitioner because there's something to be said for having somebody to guide you through it and to hold space for you. But sometimes it's hard in the beginning to figure out what do I say? What words do I use? Like, I don't know how to do it. So working with someone can help that. But I don't think there really is any contraindications. I think you go as slow as you need to. And if you do decide to work with a practitioner, if you ever come across a practitioner that's like, okay, we're going to get to the bottom of this and you're going to have to relive through the trauma, or like, we got like anybody that's like pushing you like that, find another practitioner, because this should be a gentle practice and it should never be anything where you're feeling pushed like that.
I did not ask you this ahead of time, but are you open to taking us through a tapping?
Sure. I'd be happy to.
I know that with autoimmune conditions, stress, like emotional stress, can be a huge trigger. For me, it's my biggest trigger always for a flare up. And so maybe we could tap on something around emotional stress, helping to calm down stress. Hey, I just wanted to jump in here and interrupt the program for just a hot minute. You know that I'm so passionate about this podcast, but what I'm also really passionate about is helping women with lupus minimize their symptoms, boost their energy so that they can indulge in life again. So if you are a woman who is struggling with lupus, who is sick and tired of being sick and tired, who's struggling to manage your flares, if you're finding that your lupus symptoms are just really getting in the way of you being able to live your life the way you want to, I feel you. I've been there myself and I felt the same way. And what I've found is that there are a certain set of health fundamentals that once applied, will support you in your foundational health. They will support you in building and maintaining that energy, minimizing flares, and allowing you to, again, indulge in life and follow your passions. So, if that is something that you are interested in creating for yourself, let's jump on a call together. I will walk you through the process that I use with my clients to get them from sick and tired to strong foundation of health by implementing my Health Bridge protocol. If this is something you're interested in chatting more about, I would love to talk to you. Apply for a free clarity call with me, and I look forward to getting to know you soon. And now back to the episode.
Yeah, sure. So is there something specific that you're dealing with stress about that you would want to tap on that we could demo or
How about just the general sense of overwhelm?
overwhelm? Okay.
Because I feel like that's something that everybody could relate to in some
Yes.
fashion, whether that's through work, through family life, through whatever's going on, medical procedures.
Yeah, for sure. So I will say that. So we can definitely start on something more global, like overwhelm, and with tapping, and that's common, right? People will come to me and they're just like, I'm so overwhelmed, I'm so stressed, I don't even know why. And it's just I'm dealing with all this stuff. And so we can start with that. And so I would just have everybody encourage everybody to notice what comes up for you that's more specific. And then you can use those words to get more detailed for yourself because we start global and you get more specific. And the more specific you get, the more of a difference you're going to notice for yourself. So I'll just say that. Okay, so we'll start by tapping on the pinky side of the hand. And I tap with my right hand on the pinky side of my left hand, but you can do vice versa, tap with the left side. Sometimes people like to go back and forth between the two. It doesn't matter. It's all about what feels good. If tapping on any of the points bothers you, you can skip over any of the points. And I will also say this too. I've worked with clients that have had fibromyalgia, and sometimes the act of tapping itself can be bothersome to some people. So if that's the case, you can always just do a little massage or just apply some light pressure to these points as well. Always another option. Okay. So we're going to do what's called a setup statement on the pinky side of the hand, and we'll say that 3 times. So I'll say it, and then I'll just ask you to repeat me. Okay. So even though I'm feeling really overwhelmed,
Even though I'm feeling really overwhelmed,
I love, honor, and accept myself.
I love, honor, and accept myself.
Even though I'm stressed and overwhelmed,
Even though I'm stressed and overwhelmed,
I'm choosing to love myself through this.
I'm choosing to love myself through this.
Even though I'm feeling really stressed and overwhelmed,
Even though I'm feeling really stressed and overwhelmed,
that's just how it is today.
that's just how it is today.
Okay, now we're going to move to the top of the head. I'm really stressed and overwhelmed.
I'm really stressed and overwhelmed.
And then we'll tap on the points right above the start of the eyebrows. All this stress and overwhelm.
All the stress and overwhelm.
Side of the eyes. I'm carrying all this stress and overwhelm.
I'm carrying all this stress and overwhelm.
Under the eyes. I'm feeling really stressed today.
I'm feeling really stressed today.
And then we're going to go underneath the nose. There's so much going on.
There's so much going on.
And then coming on to the chin crease. I'm dealing with all this stress and overwhelm.
I'm dealing with all this stress and overwhelm.
Coming on to the collarbone points. There is so much to do.
There's so much to do.
And then we'll come under the arm. So it's on the side of the body, about the center of the bra strap for women, or about 4 finger lengths down for men. I'm so stressed and overwhelmed.
I'm so stressed and overwhelmed.
And then the back of the hand between the pinky and the ring finger. I have so much to do.
I have so much to do.
And then we'll just pause there and take a nice deep breath and let it go. So that is what we would call one round of tapping. And you can see that I use very simple language there. We're just repeating, that's called a reminder phrase as we tap on all the other points. Like, I'm so stressed. I'm so overwhelmed. Some people will ask when first doing this, like, are we tapping in the bad stuff? Like, we're just saying that over and over again. And the answer is no, we're not tapping in the bad stuff. We are acknowledging how we are feeling. I didn't ask you in the beginning, but like what we should have done is I should have asked you on a scale of 0 to 10, how stressed and overwhelmed do you feel? And then you use that as a check-in point. And then as we continue to do rounds, you can see how that number begins to shift. So, if we were to do more, I could say, like, when you say that you're stressed and overwhelmed, do you notice that in your body? Like, what do you feel? And then whatever your answer to that would be, we could use that as a starting point for what the next round could be. Like, I feel this stress in my chest, or that sort of thing.
I tend to feel it in my stomach and in my shoulders.
Yeah. Do you want to do another round?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what, if you had to describe the sensation in your stomach and your shoulders, how would you describe that?
Shoulders, just super tightness. Stomach is like in my gut. It's more like dysfunction. Like
Okay.
my stomach can get bloated or really affected physically by the stress.
Okay. So we'll come to the pinky side of the hand again. So even though I feel this stress in my shoulders and my stomach,
Even though I feel this stress in my shoulders and my stomach,
it's okay and I'm okay.
it's okay and I'm okay.
Even though I feel this dysfunction in my stomach,
Even though I feel this dysfunction in my stomach,
it's tightness in my shoulders,
and this tightness in my shoulders,
just what I'm noticing.
it's just what I'm noticing.
I love, honor, and accept myself.
I love, honor, and accept myself.
Even though I feel this stress even though I feel this stress in my shoulders and my stomach,
Even though I feel the stress in my shoulders and my stomach,
right here, right now, I'm acknowledging it.
right here, right now, I'm acknowledging it.
Coming to the top of the head. All this tightness in my shoulders,
All this tightness in my shoulders.
coming to the eyebrows. I'm carrying all this tightness in my shoulders.
I'm carrying all this tightness in my shoulders.
Side of the eyes. All this bloating and dysfunction in my stomach.
All this bloating and dysfunction in my stomach.
Under the eyes. I'm carrying all this anxiety and stress in my body.
I'm carrying all this anxiety and stress in my body.
Under the nose. I know this isn't serving me.
I know this isn't serving me.
All this tightness in my shoulders.
All this tightness in my shoulders.
All this dysfunction in my stomach.
All this dysfunction in my stomach.
Moving from the chin down to the collarbone. All this stress and anxiety in my body.
All this stress and anxiety in my body.
Under the arm. All of this stress and anxiety in my body.
All this stress and anxiety in my body.
And the back of the hand. I've been carrying stress and anxiety in my body.
Say that one again.
I've been carrying all of this stress and anxiety in my body.
I've been carrying all this stress and anxiety in my body.
And then take another nice deep breath. Well, so did you notice anything as we were tapping through those 2 rounds, whether there were any differences in the physical sensation or any other thoughts that kind of came to mind for you as we were moving through it?
It honestly just felt calming to acknowledge it out loud. Yeah.
And that's definitely a common thing. It's like, oh, it feels good. Feels good to say it. It feels good to say how I'm feeling. And so then I could ask you, like, how long do you feel like you've been carrying this anxiety and stress? And we could tap on Sometimes people will say, like, for years, like I've been dealing with this stress in my shoulders and feeling in my stomach for years. And we can tap on that. Or how does it make you feel that you are dealing with this, right? Does it bring up feelings of, I don't know, frustration or anger or sadness that you're dealing with all this stress? And so basically in a session, the practitioner's job is to just pepper you with questions to help you reflect and notice what you're feeling, and then putting some words to that, and then moving through. And as you continue to go through this process, it really is, you begin to connect the dots, and you don't always know where that next dot is leading you to, and it oftentimes leads you in a direction that you never would have expected,
Mm.
but can really help you to create some lightness in your body, sometimes simply by saying it out loud and acknowledging how you're feeling, or having what we call a cognitive shift, and in recognizing these thoughts and deciding that, like, oh, that's something that my mother always used to say. That's not actually how I think. That's her voice in my head, or something like that. Yeah.
And so you would slowly work through to get to a point where now you're tapping on bringing in different energy in the body or different thought processes. Shift.
So it's always the intention to move from the heavier feeling to that improved, better feeling. But it's important that it feels true to you. Dealing with someone or working with someone who is dealing with a lot of physical pain, and they're really angry about it, and they're frustrated that they're having to deal with this, it's probably pretty unlikely that they're going to get to a point where, like, I feel great and my body's supporting me in that moment. But maybe the better thought or feeling for that day is, I've gone through some really difficult days and I've always gotten through them. Or, like, I have a support system who is there and I'm so grateful for that, right? So you can naturally begin to move the needle towards the better thought or feeling, but just sticking with what really feels true, as opposed to gaslighting yourself into saying some sort of positive affirmation that is really far from how you're actually feeling.
Right. And that's where affirmations and manifestation fall short when they're not done right,
Mhm.
because it's like trying to put on rose colored glasses when you don't really connect with that positive affirmation that you're trying to get, that you would like to get to.
Right.
If you're just saying, my body is showing me symptoms because it's trying to support me and teach me, it's like, no, I feel like I want to say F you to my body right now. It does not feel supportive. Right.
And that's okay, right? And that's exactly where tapping comes in, because then you would say that, like, I want to say F you to my body. And we would tap on that. I want to say F you to my body. And then maybe it would be like, and what is your body saying back? Right. And then you could get into a conversation between you and your body. But yeah, that's exactly where you want to go with tapping, is saying truly how you feel. And I think that there's a time and a place for manifestation, but like you said, like, I think it needs to be done correctly, because I think I was actually just talking about this with a friend, because it almost makes you feel, where your thoughts go is what you attract. And so it's really hard when you feel like crap to be thinking really positively. And then it's like, oh, well, I'm manifesting more bad stuff because I'm just focused on how I'm feeling right now. And then there's guilt of, like, oh, am I doing this to myself because I'm in this negative mindset? And it's just like, oh, I hate all of that. Like, let's just get real. Let's not sugarcoat how we're feeling, and let's just get to the raw truth of how you're actually feeling. Because what the beautiful thing is, that's where the shift begins to happen, when you get really honest with yourself.
Uh, totally agree. Totally agree. And I've been stuck before in that space where it's like, oh my God, I'm just bringing on more of this and more of this because I can't get out of this mindset. But you have to start with baby steps, and you
Mhm.
have to do it in a somewhat strategic way to get to that place where you can have that better thought. And that better thought might not be all the way to, I feel amazing. That better thought might be like, I've gotten through this before and I'll be okay.
Yeah. I trust that it's going to get better, right? And, like,
Exactly.
if that feels true, because sometimes that doesn't feel true for someone, but figuring out what does feel true for you to say, and just going with that.
Yeah. And consistency, I think, in this process too, doing it once or twice and then forgetting about it isn't going to get you sustainable changes. So it's doing this consistently over time. And over time, you might be able to get to that feeling that you at one point thought was unattainable.
100%. Yeah, they call it a practice for a reason, right? We have to
Exactly.
practice. We have to practice it and take the time for ourselves because we often don't. We often are pushing through, whether that's society telling us to push harder, go faster, no rest, no pain, no gain, all that stuff. And this is an opportunity for you to really acknowledge how you're feeling and love yourself through it. Give yourself grace and love yourself through it.
Exactly. And so, Lauren, where do people find you? Who do you work with? What resources do you have for people that want to
Yeah.
learn more?
You can find me on mindshiftwithlauren.com. That's my website. And I have a free masterclass. So if you are someone who's interested in learning a little bit more about the science, you can check that out at mindshiftwithlauren.com/masterclass. And then I work with a wide variety of clients. I do work with a lot of entrepreneurs. I have a monthly group that's for entrepreneurs where we come together once a month and tap on whatever issues you're dealing with in your business or in your personal life because as an entrepreneur, one always affects the other. That you can just sign up for a drop-in on my website. All the information is on there, Mindshift with Lauren. I'm also on Instagram and I have a YouTube channel. If you sign up on my website for my newsletter, I send out weekly videos, tapping videos where you can tap along with me on a wide variety of topics. Yeah.
I love that. So, especially for all my chronic entrepreneurs out there, I highly recommend that you all give Lauren a follow, check out everything that she has to offer because there's so many of us creative chronic illness warriors out there who have their side hustles, who maybe can't sustain a regular job 9 to 5 and need to do something else on their own to sustain themselves in a way that can support their chronic illness and their flare ups. And so I think something like working with you would be extremely supportive for that. So,
Yeah, and it's a great community of because when you sometimes when you're an entrepreneur, you can feel like you're on an island, right? You're trying to figure all this stuff out on your own. So to come together with a group of women that have all experienced some version of probably what you're going through can be helpful to not feel so alone.
excellent. Well, thank you so much, Lauren. Is there any last thoughts or anything that we didn't get to that you wanted to mention before we close?
Yeah, no, I just thank you so much for having me. And I would just say, give yourself the gift of checking in with yourself today and asking yourself, what do you need? What do you need right now in this moment? And whatever the answer is to that, go do it for yourself because you deserve it.
Thank you so much, Lauren.
Thank you.
So, as we were just speaking to in the episode, I really believe that tapping is such a powerful tool to have in your toolbox when it comes to addressing flares and addressing the stress and overwhelm and limiting beliefs and thought patterns that can lead to more flare ups or inflammation in the body. As Lauren was speaking to, we are basically using tapping to create that sense of safety within the body. We are teaching our amygdala to relax and to stop sending the fight, flight, or freeze response into the body by elevating the cortisol levels and creating that response system in the body that keeps us in this state of unsafety within our own bodies. So tapping is teaching the body, teaching your nervous system that it is safe, teaching your amygdala that it's okay to relax. It's okay to take a step back and let our normal body processes proceed, right? And as you know, if you have an autoimmune condition, stress is one of the biggest triggers. And when we are hyped up with our cortisol all the time, that is putting our body in a constant state of stress. So, how do we manage our flares? We learn how to manage our cortisol, how to relax our nervous system and calm us down so we can get back into that rest and digest state and stop triggering our flares, stop triggering our inflammation from just being in that constant state, right? Please check out Lauren's offerings, her resources, do that free masterclass so you can really dive into what does tapping maybe look like for me? How does it feel? And play around with it because it can be such, again, such a powerful tool to add to whatever else it is that you are already doing for your self care. Or if you're just diving into what does self care look like for me? How can I take a more active role in my health and wellness? Tapping is a great place to start. So, if you are ready to dive into your self care or to add to it, if you're already being active in putting together your self care routine to reduce your flares and to regain energy, I would love to chat with you. Apply for a free health strategy session with me so I can see where you're at in your health journey and where you want to get to. And we can chat about some of the best ways for you to get there. You can apply for that call in the show notes, and I look forward to connecting with you. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time on the next episode of the Health Bridge podcast.